Thanks, Mark. Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name's Damien Davis, and Dale and I are going to talk about
I think you're on mute, Damien.
Really?
No, I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay. So hopefully everyone can hear me fine. Mark may be having some audio issues, but if the rest of you can hear me, great. So my name's Damien Davis, and Dale and I are thrilled to be invited to speak about our point of view on hyperautomation to enhance the customer experience. A bit like Boris and Chris Whitty, I'm going to do some speaking and Dale's going to advance the slides. So next slide, please, Dale. Jonathan, thank you. You really resonated when you were speaking about your experiences booking flights and how to measure customer experience. Pre-pandemic, I was on a plane twice a week. So I can tell you my carbon footprint has improved dramatically over the last 2 years. And I could also really resonate when Duncan was speaking about understanding the customer experience and empathizing, with the customer. And the theme that I think we're seeing today from both presentations we saw before the break is that customer experience, putting humans at the forefront and the center of everything we do, is critical to succeeding for any business. Rewind back to March 2020. How many times do we hear that, in presentations today? Almost 2 years ago, the world shut down and the need for automation increased due to remote distributed working environments. A lot of businesses suddenly found themselves in. So every business, regardless of their industry vertical, suddenly became a digital business or were rapidly accelerating their digital transformation programs just to survive. Look at companies that thrive like Amazon and those that sadly didn't survive like Debenhams. And some studies that we've called out here show that intelligently automating work helps companies get work done faster in order to provide that great customer experience. Processes, engagement models has to refocus on being human-centric. And organizations are turning to automation to improve employee experience and empower their workforce, whether in an office or, a remote garden office that I have the luxury of being in, a remote distributed environment. Intelligent automation alleviates the burden of repetitive work and it boosts efficiencies of the entire workforce. Now, some of the studies that we've just called out here on this slide, Accenture found that even during the current economic uncertainty, there's a small percentage of companies, around 7%, that have achieved nearly twice the efficiency and 3 times the profitability of their peers. And these future-ready companies have doubled down on digital transformation and retooled operating models, pivoting from incremental improvements to wholesale reinvention. And there's an MIT tech review that ran an article that shows productivity is on a huge upward curve, largely down to AI investments. And the past decade, long before COVID was around, but the past decade has delivered this astonishing cluster of technology breakthroughs. And the most important ones are all in the AI thing, with development of machine learning algorithms that have a direct positive impact on human productivity. And then McKinsey show that in this era of workplace upheaval, companies that create a tailored, authentic experience, they just strengthen their employee purpose. It ignites energy and it elevates organization-wide focus on customer experience. Next slide, please, Dale. So we're seeing, look, business leaders are transforming their operating model. In order to achieve these outcomes, we're seeing this deployment of a hyper-automation strategy, which reimagines how people and business processes work. Now, a lot of employees feel supported by their organizations throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, right? Despite feeling supported, though, there are many challenges. So a lot of organizations are exploring hybrid working models with focus on enhancing efficiency, being more productive, increasing knowledge and intelligence, and most of all, nurturing that employee experience that creates that sense of belonging. Now, we know that employees are hungry for trust, social cohesion, and purpose, and they want to feel that their contributions are recognized and that their teams are being truly collaborative to drive efficiency and productivity. So at the same time, automation can be used to replace what would otherwise be considered unproductive tasks. For example, allowing workers to spend time on what they enjoy doing increasing their knowledge and intelligence, working on higher value tasks, powered by data and information at their fingertips, delivered by AI recommendations. We're finding intelligence increases significantly. And you can see that Dale's moved the slide ahead of time, and that we can now see that these benefits, not just providing a great employee experience, thinking about that profound reorientation away from a traditional top-down model to one based on the fundamentals of design thinking. This shift is allowing companies to put its workers first by exploring and responding to how they view their employee journeys. And some of the operational outcomes can be directly attributed to clear financial results as well. Results that improve not just the bottom line or top line revenue, but the retention of the most valuable assets, humans, people. So efficiency reduces operating costs. It seems a simple idea, but if a service request takes less time to fulfill, or if an incident or an outage is resolved faster, it's going to save time, it's going to save money. Similarly, with intelligence, upskilling workers to do more, see more, understand more, it improves productivity, increases satisfaction, reduces operational risk, and it can be directly linked to the improved employee experience, feeling more valued, more passionate, and ultimately results in better talent retention and driving revenue. So one more slide before I pass the baton to Dale. What exactly is hyperautomation? So the outcomes that I've spoken about, they sound very compelling, but how does new technology help us to achieve this state of hyperautomation? Now, Dale's going to help us better understand, what it is, to understand its implications. But put simply, we've got these 3 points. Now, how we're defining hyperautomation is, number one, a business strategy. Automating, businesses as much as reasonably possible, focused on, deriving insights and executing at scale. Number two, that whole end-to-end approach, a holistic approach to automation, leveraging a single view of processes, tasks, in order to continually improve and optimize. And then finally, that people first, human first, customer first mentality, a flexible toolbox, ideal for applying the right automation tool to the right business need at the right time. And that's where hyperautomation really comes to life. So with that, Dale, I'm going to pass the baton to you.
Thanks, Damien. Okay, so for us, the time is now for transformation, and a lot of people can become overwhelmed by the obstacles. So this isn't an opportunity we want to wait on. We want to look at this, and hyperautomation is our new way forward. So looking at the business obstacles that we're seeing on a day-to-day basis, with rising operational costs, we've got fragmentation in process and technology, we've got high friction, and going back to that employee experience, you have your employee experience is one of your main focus points is happy customer, happy employee, your retention rate. So, customers and colleagues out there, they're seeing frictions within the employee experience. And the other thing that Damien just touched on is underutilize the human potential. So for us, this phrase for me, this was from Fabrizio Biscotti, who's at Gartner, and he actually says, hyperautomation has shifted from an option to a conditional of survival. So, this link that will be a part of the presentation, it's a really good read, and I suggest everybody has a look at it. And it's something that's really relevant for what we at ServiceNow are trying to achieve. So the ServiceNow approach is to put people, and this is what the whole thing is about, at the center, and transform how they work in order to evolve how the business actually operates. So when we transform the daily work of people to be more efficient and better experience, the cross-enterprise process and innovation initiatives are also transformed. So we want to work better, we want to work smarter, and ultimately we want to make an impact. So for us, we start to looking at reimagining the work with people at the centric of the hyper-automation approach. But how do we do this? So by automation, we want to manually automate these tasks and processes. So these laborious processes that we see on a day-to-day basis, You know, people in an office scraping spreadsheets and doing calculations on a daily basis, handing it off. We want to look at automating those mundane tasks. We want to discover. Discovery is the most, for me, is the most part of the journey that you need to start on. Where do you need to redesign these legacy processes? Some organizations, they come into this looking at, you know, a process that they've in their mind, but they blinker themselves off to the bigger picture. Where else can we go with this? So understanding and discovering, you're actually helping customers, people understand, you know, where we're focused on at the moment, you know, open up the blinds and say, where else can we go? And then ultimately optimize, process the end-to-end process. You look at a process and in your workplace, you think we have this automated, but you don't think of the bits outside of that to have that fully automated approach. So, and overlaying all of that, you can enhance the intelligence by applying the AI. You know, we heard Damien talk about predictive intelligence, AI. This is in my arena, the virtual agent. And not only talking about the automation of tasks, but the wrapper that goes around that, you know, the multi-channel approach of how I can get something done, how I interact with the virtual agent. Can the virtual agent make decisions on what I need to do? Can it do those automation tasks? And it's that whole approach, not just focusing on that task, but wrapping everything, which ultimately gives that people-centric improvement. And when we look at something, this is a really good slide. So when we look at applying automation approach to an order to cash, for example, from a perspective of people who make it happen. So the legacy approach that you're seeing in the first phase here is where, as it says here, an unstructured human approach is started, a process is started. So then the PDF of a contract is received via email. The third-party credit system requires a human analysis. And then the customer in payment requires a phone call. So you've got many multiple manual steps there. So applying the automation, the hyper-automation, by applying the low-code app to orchestrate the whole process, the PDF can be digitized and invoice triggered by RPA. Decision recommendations by the AI of the predictive intelligence, and then ultimately integration into payment portal to reconcile. So this is where we take that human laborious process and we workflow it. We move it through that hyper-automation state and we digitize everything. And if we digitize everything with hyper-automation, we're improving that customer's approach. So for us, you know, we're really going forward with this in a massive way. So the thing about it is, while automation has been a goal for enterprise for years, previous technology approaches have actually made sometimes the problem worse. So, you know, if you look at organizations today, many enterprise have an ERP system, which automate some critical internal processes, but are very complex and sometimes inaccessible. Also, many have many rigid on-prem BPM systems. They handle few key customer-facing processes, but they're actually unable to adapt the process or create new ones based on the evolving business needs. And then finally, many enterprise organizations are also automating tasks with RPA technology. RPA is great for unlocking value from a legacy system with a UI-based automation, okay? But what about when the UI follows? So when you're looking at this screen here, they're highly technical systems. This is where people have had problems solving this. They're highly technical systems and in excess to the masses. They've resulted in massive backlog of our demand for automation. They've contributed to people, process, and technology silos, and then they're optimized for agility. And that last word I can never pronounce, so I'm not going to try it. I wrote it, but I'm not going to try it. So where do we fit? We've entered into the era of automation by anyone. Hyper-automation for people with ServiceNow. So we're looking at that inaccessible, that backlog, that silo, that rigid. So what we're coming across with is that low-code automation for any user. We already do this on a day-to-day basis with our virtual agent, showing you how easy it is to do. Design for business IT, co-creation, foundation of connected people, process, and technology. And it's highly adaptable with full governance. So ServiceNow takes a unique approach to hyperautomation, and you're going to see what our pillars are. So what we're looking at, we want to look at a single complete platform that is future-proof. This is really important to ServiceNow, with a maximum of simplicity. So we want to automate for anyone, dynamic processes to consistently give that user experience. And again, what we've always prided ourselves, single data model for that complete insight. So a true ready-made platform. So this is where we start introducing the single platform for automation, hyperautomation. So built on our Now platform, we've come up with this, the 4 pillars of hyperautomation. And as you've noticed, as I've gone across the presentation, we've talked about discover, automate, apply AI, and optimize. I'm not going to talk specific functionalities, but inside of each of those pillars, there are process and tool sets that we adopt in our lives at ServiceNow. So we're going to go through these in a higher level. So think about your business priorities and what hyperautomation can solve. Some of you may already be on the journey, but need that bigger picture. So think about the first pillar of discover. Discover what our processes and how we can discover new ones. This is our process optimization area, where we can process mine and find where those bottlenecks are. That helps you understand where you need to go. So what are the bottlenecks? What are our opportunities in IT? And the great thing is with this is that this is within IT, but hyperautomation goes across the landscape. HR, CSM, it goes across everything.
Somebody just muted Dale.
So I don't know where I went off, but I'll just recap on the last bit. Automation discovery, where are the bottlenecks? And again, it goes across the landscape, HR, IT, CSM, everything. So when you're in that discover phase, it gives you that information of where do we need to automate? Where are our bottlenecks in the process? So when we get into that automation phase or that automate phase, you're looking at how I can digitize legacy applications or unautomated processes. So you've got that low stroke, no code packaged automation. How do I integrate a disparate system and automate repetitive work? So a lot of our workings that we do, we talk about our integration hub with APIs, but then you get into systems that may not have an API, or you've got this repetitive work that you want us to do. So launching in our new release, we're bringing in the automation hub, and this is the launch of RPA hub. So we will be able to do those mundane tasks, automate those manual processes. So taking the blinkers off the viewpoint of, I can do this with the virtual agent, I can do this with the password reset, but I can expand that now. I can actually look at systems where we don't have that integration capability. We can use the RPA hub to actually go off and do those tasks for us. And then when you move through that automation phase, you're starting to use the wraparound. How can I enhance that service that we're automating? How can I make that customer's experience, that employee's experience better? So then we're starting into the, how can I make better decisions and augment that human ability? So this is where our AI guided decision process starts to come in. How can I engage my customers with intelligence? Again, the virtual agent. And again, expanding on the virtual agent, the multi-channel process, how you can access that via, the varied portals, Teams, Slack, all these different channels. And then finally, once you've applied the AI, you're then going, how productive and profitable my process has been. And how do I optimize and manage the process continually? Because as I always say, that I would have liked a circle of life, the Lion King here, but normally if I just went back a slide, you start to see the 4 pillars of automation. And as you can see, it's a continual cycle. You're constantly looking how I can improve that customer's journey. So this is for us. Now, as I said to you before, it's easy to begin, and some of you may be already on the journey. There may just be sections of the hyperautomation journey that is missing. But for me, it's all to do with improving the employee's experience, how we can automate and integrate, how we can discover, apply AI, and optimize. And this is for us the hyperautomation journey. Now, I hope you found this enjoyable. I hope you like the thought of this. I'm going to pull a final slide and say thank you. And I'm just going to hand back if we have any questions.
Yeah, Dale, look, just to recap though, like, we've put quite a lot of focus on employee experience because our position here is that will amplify customer experience. By automating, mundane, repetitive work, it frees humans up to do more high value work that ultimately drives that better customer experience.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.